Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Eat the Rich. I am Emily Walsh, and I am here with my co-host and husband, Danny Moss.
Hello, hello, hello.
Wow, how many coffees did you have today?
Only 2,
Okay.
which, I think is pretty good for me.
You just came in real hot there.
I did.
Yeah.
I did. Well, because I was doing something stupid with chords that I should have done before we started the podcast, and I felt silly about it. Which you can probably now see on the video.
That's kind of the whole thing is they can see video.
Yep.
Yeah. The 12 people that are out there watching the video, we
God
love you.
bless them,
We appreciate you. This is definitely worth it. And
yeah, I hope y'all are enjoying. No one, maybe people asked for it. I don't even know anymore.
Your grandma did.
My grandma, yes. I hope Kathy is really enjoying our antics.
Enjoying it. And other than that, you guys let us know if you're watching it. We do get some feedback from time to time. We love feedback.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've had 2 coffees. You didn't ask, but I'm going to tell you anyway.
I was too jazzed up on my own coffees,
I
actually.
know. One of them I was tired enough to buy, leave in the stroller outside for maybe 2 hours, and then remember, and then drink the whole thing.
Yeah, hot coffee the hard way.
Hot coffee the hard way. My least favorite type of coffee.
Yeah. Even
second,
least favorite than regular hot coffee?
Yes. At least hot coffee, the regular way is intended to be hot. Hot coffee the hard way is so sad. But
and probably full of bad milk.
Well, it's oat milk, so
Yeah,
I'm not
right.
getting, scurvy. That doesn't make sense. You guys, I'm tired.
We're
what
tired.
I'm trying to say
We're
is
tired.
our child is growing molars.
Yeah.
And molars can kick rocks. I don't care for them.
No.
She has not slept. She hates sleeping.
We love sleeping, but
Last
we're
night
separated from the things we love sometimes.
We are. Last night she got less sleep than an adult should. Like
Right.
last night she went to sleep at 11:30. She woke up at 5:30. Like that's
insane.
Not enough.
Yeah,
sleep.
she's got some big old bags under her eyes.
She looks like she has been at a weekend-long rave.
Yeah.
The least fun type of rave where you just grow teeth. I don't
Yeah.
know if that kind of party exists.
That's a crazy rave.
I don't want to go to it.
I don't know what you were up to in your 20s, but I guess teeth raves.
Yeah, I guess you don't know what I was up to in my 20s. I did go see my friend's band called the Toothaches in a warehouse that I could have sworn was going to. It wasn't 2:30. I hate you so much. I was pretty sure it was going to fall down, and grateful it didn't. But I was always fun because I was like 25, and I was like, I don't think we should be here. But yeah, I'm gonna see how my tiredness manifests tonight. I'm not sure. I can't quite place where I'm at.
Yeah.
So
well, if halfway through we have to throw back a Red Bull.
I just will quit, I think. I think that's a bad
That's
idea.
the end of the podcast right there.
Yeah.
Sorry, guys. We tried.
We
tried real hard.
We tried.
Yeah. I do want to do a quick shout out to, and I apologize if I have pronounced your name wrong, but Luis, we read it. We loved it. I'm going to write back soon once I have time, but I had to finish my book report, so I didn't get to it today. But I really appreciated your very, very thoughtful pod, and we're glad you're enjoying it.
Yeah,
so.
what a long, if somebody wants to try to give us longest feedback, you're going to have a high bar to cross.
But
so
don't
try.
stop, try, because this was great. I was really excited about it. I do, she had a couple of topic suggestions that I thought were really great. I do think we will get into Elon Musk at some point. The thing about him is I feel like there are so many crimes still yet to come. And so it's hard. So we could do like an early days, we could do like a what happened with SpaceX and why what is PayPal?
People are always suggesting Elon Musk, Bezos, all the heavy hitters as it were. But I feel like we're right. There's stuff we don't know about yet.
Yeah.
And B, there's so much part of our present day, and I have so much anger for them.
It's a little too close to home.
I also think
the sources
real.
There aren't maybe there are. I haven't really looked, but I feel like I don't trust the sources yet.
They did have one suggestion for an Elon Musk book, but there hasn't been like this giant takedown of most of these people that has done well or that I've heard about because it's being suppressed.
I bet though Elon, because he's like the fanboy nature of his fame is so crazy, and like
But he's like the lamest.
Yeah, he just shows up to the back end of a company and then takes it over and is like, look what I made.
I don't
and
get
then he
any part
Twitter.
of the fandom. Like, he's not charming, he's not smart, he's not funny, he's not good looking. What is it?
He does Nazi salutes all the time.
Yeah, he's transphobic as like, why?
Yeah.
Why? I don't know. Anyway, thank you for
and then
your
also Iran.
lovely email.
I definitely want to look into Iran. I'm very interested in the downfall of their democratically elected president.
That is above my pay grade.
What's also, it connects back to the original BP oil company because they basically got all of their money by stealing it from the Iranian people. So, you know, so I think that could be fun. And by fun, I mean, oof. You know what I mean?
Yeah, let's get into it.
Let's get. We got
we're on a
long
schedule.
day's journey until night. What's that?
I mean,
you know that poem?
It's a long day's journey. Something.
Rage against the dying of the light. You know the one I'm talking about? Maybe. I don't know.
I do. You said that in such a way that I was responsible for knowing the poem. I'm so tired.
I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry.
You guys, sorry. This is a form of marriage counseling that you're reviewing / listening to. We're just tired.
Yeah.
We're tired. If you ever think you want to have a kid, think about how you are
do
with
you
being
like
tired.
Sleep? Are you interested in it as a concept? Is it one of your favorite things? That's going to be tough for you.
That's going to be tough. Do you like to do things on time and on schedule? Yeah. Maybe give that up for a couple years.
Yeah. If you like routine and do not like it when that routine just suddenly changes and you're not told the rules anymore.
Yeah.
I don't know.
That's a tough one. Tough little cookie. But
so back to Henrietta. Yeah. Okay. What do you remember from last ep?
I remember everything.
Okay. Lay it on me.
There was a guy who made an immortal chicken heart that was not immortal.
No, and he was also probably a Nazi. And
probably a Nazi and into eugenics. Mm-hmm. Somebody always is. Yeah. The guy who originally stole Henrietta Lack's cells figured out several different ways to ship them about. For a little while, they were like in pilots' pockets, and then he came up with the culture medium to ship them around.
Eventually they just used the mail. Which worked.
Yes. Henrietta unfortunately passed away, and they also stopped treating her, and they also stopped letting her see her family.
Yeah. And they didn't tell her that she was dying.
They didn't tell her that she was dying. So that's all terrible.
Yeah.
And then something about polio.
Yes. After her death, they started a giant HeLa factory at Tuskegee to help verify that the polio vaccine was viable. So that was good because polio, bad.
Yes.
And then after that, standardized cell culture, much more demand for HeLa because of all of the other science they were doing. And then all of a sudden, a new factory completely corners the market and starts purely commercial production.
And so now this production is just for money and not for altruism. And that's where we get into some shady stuff.
Yeah. Once more, the source for this series is The Immortal Life of Henrietta Lack by Rebecca Skloot, written in 2010.
Great.
Okay, so George Guy, he's the guy that the guy, and Margaret, his wife. But more and more demand for HeLa was sweeping the nation. So Guy, however, seemed much less enthused about his discovery than the rest of the world. He was he was just kind of like. Kind of annoyed. He was like, guys, why don't you care about all of these other cell cultures I've made that are much less useful?
We want HeLa.
Like, we want HeLa. And everyone urged him to write a bunch of scientific papers and publish things so that he could get credit for his discovery. But he was always like, I'm too busy doing other cell nonsense, making
wow, from everything you had told me about him before, I would have think he would have wanted
the fame,
to get his flowers, as the kids say.
Yeah, but he just wanted to keep on cooking. He was like, this that was step 1. I'm going for step 25.
I can do more.
So eventually he wrote 1. And then after that, Margaret just started writing his papers for him and then submitting them. So,
just another tired woman being like, "Why don't you finish the task you started? Why don't you finish what you started?
You just got to finish it. All you got to do is just write this report. That's the whole point of science.
The whole, you people won't benefit if you don't publish it. I must do other stuff.
Yeah, he seemed kind of annoyed with HeLa's success and annoyed that everyone was always asking him about the cells. And he tried promoting some of his other cells that he made, but none of them ever really took off because none of them worked as well as HeLa did.
Sorry, my guy. If you want to be in the fame parade of big money science,
you just gotta write the papers. Come on, guy.
I don't even know what I'm saying.
That's okay. He was also kind of mad about the fact that it was out of his control. So he was like annoyed that like people kept bugging him about
90% of it.
But yeah, I think that's probably part of it. And he kept like writing people letters. He would write people letters to yell at them and say like, "Hey, I've already done that science," and they were like, "Hey, where's the proof?
We can't do anything
you just
with
publish the papers.
Your thoughts. You have to publish the papers."
And then one of his like friends and colleagues was like, "Hey, I hear you, man, but you maybe should have published those papers before you released the HeLa cells so widely that they're now commercially available."
Yeah.
Like once they were out in the world, they started calling them general scientific property, which sucks.
Interesting.
But basically, by saying that, he was like, "You lost the ability to have control over this thing when you let it out into the world, and now it's general scientific property," which again completely ignores and separates the fact that it's a real there's an actual woman
behind it. Do you have any idea what else is considered general scientific property?
I don't, but I bet like penicillin at this point.
I guess this is like when you like. I believe it's 100 years when the IP, like Nancy Drew is now public domain.
Wow.
So now you can write.
And Mickey Mouse is about to be public domain.
Oh,
which is interesting because there's a cool video game called Mouse, which is like a gangster video game with like Steamboat Willie Mickey Mouse.
Oh.
I think it's fun. I think the original one is coming up for public domain, but I don't really
Gotcha.
know.
Well, either way, I'm assuming it's like that.
Something like that, maybe, yeah. So once HeLa became as famous as it did, like once it helped cure polio and once it went to space and all of these things happened, people started becoming curious about where the cells initially came from.
And when you say people, do you mean science?
No,
I
mean at this point I mean the public.
Okay.
Like there'd been enough news about HeLa that like the general like John Q. Smith and whoever were like, "What's going on with these cells? Where did they come from?"
This person, who is this person?
He's from the mountains of Appalachia.
Oh, okay.
But he's interested in cellular biology.
And he loves cellular biology.
Yes, because he'd like his teeth to be regrown with a little bit of help from HeLa.
Rego?
Well, I've lost some teeth, okay? And there's a little bit of tongue gone, too.
Oh, no. What caused this accident?
The mines. I don't know. I'm so tired. So the scientists at John Hopkins, including George Guy and Richard Talind, wanted to keep Henrietta's identity secret. Woof. There were a lot of people who already knew Henrietta's name, however, that at some point it was bound to leak. So on November 2nd, 1953, the Minneapolis Star was the first to name the woman behind HeLa cells. Luckily for those who wanted to keep the identity secret, Star got the name a little wrong. HeLa was from a Baltimore woman named Henrietta Lack.
Okay.
So close, but not quite.
But close enough that if social media, like if her family was paying attention, they'd be like, "Excuse me."
And close enough that like if intervention had not happened, it probably would have eventually been figured out.
Right.
But
wasn't it figured out since we know about
years later, years and years later, like after George Guy died, they figured it out. So, like 25 years later. So after the name was first leaked, the journalists began approaching Guy and Talind wanting to write a human interest perspective about the HeLa cells. Guy and Talind were pretty resistant to everyone who reached out, responding that they thought that a plenty interesting story could be written about the HeLa cells without divulging the name, and it wasn't worth the risk to the hospital and the family to confirm the identity. The exact risk at that time is unclear because it was sort of becoming standard practice to maintain patient confidentiality, but at the time there was no law against it, and it was not really like standard practice. They were just kind of like, they're like, hey, yeah, we should probably do that.
Because again, this is another classic story of not breaking the law, just doing something that shouldn't have happened.
Yes,
like,
yeah, and it does seem like they basically discussed this as if it was like an altruistic, like we got to protect the family, but like the family didn't benefit at all from not being known in any of this. So, and could have very well benefited the other way if they had been known. So,
do you mean with money?
Yeah, with money.
And maybe peace of mind that if she's helping save
peace of mind.
people.
Yep. So eventually Guy did agree to be interviewed by Collier's magazine, but he had two conditions. One, he be allowed to read and review the article, and two, he would not include any personal story or full name of HeLa's donor in the article. So the writer begrudgingly agreed to his conditions and wrote a popular article talking about the young woman who changed the face of medicine. They wrote about HeLa cells, how they were changing society, and would continue to make the impossible possible. They wrote about the woman behind the cells abstractly, and in the article, they called her Helen L., a young woman in her 30s, admitted to John Hopkins with acute cervical cancer. So they also said that Helen L's cells were grown from cells taken after Helen L's death.
Which is
not true. So both of these things are clearly misinformation, probably provided by George Guy or Richard Tolland.
Weird question.
Yep.
Could you take cells from somebody after they're dead and make them alive again?
Not back then, but now more likely. So there like a lot of advancements have happened where basically like it would have to be pretty quick after they died. It seems like because once the cells are dead, they're dead. But pretty quickly after, you could probably take them, and then there's like certain viruses that you can infect the cells with that will make them reproduce in the way that which is kind of crazy. But one thing is normal cells, like not cancer cells, normal cells kind of can only reproduce a certain number of times before they die. There's a thing that we'll talk about in probably the next episode,
which is like limiting returns.
It's a compound that that basically is part of the reason why everybody was hopeful that we would just live to be 150 and 200 and 400 and whatever. But there's this one compound that basically, once your cells are tired, they're tired, and then they're done.
I mean, I hear you, brother.
Yeah. But cancerous cells, and at least some cancerous cells, can just reproduce.
They are indefatigable.
Yes. For sure.
I don't know where that word came from, but
I like it.
You're welcome.
So not only did they not correct the record when the Minneapolis Sun got Henrietta's name wrong, they doubled down and gave the reporters a new false name. So later, when Guy and the PR department of John Hopkins was given the opportunity to review the article, they rewrote many parts, correcting scientific errors, but left two blatant inaccuracies. Clearly, they would have noticed these inaccuracies while they were reading it, but decided to leave the name in.
Okay.
Later, when Guy and the PR department at John Hopkins were given the opportunity to review the article, they rewrote many parts, correcting scientific errors, but leaving in the two blatant inaccuracies. And clearly, they would have noticed them, but clearly also decided to leave them in. So in the article, they fully named her Helen Lane, and that name is a complete fabrication.
Right, because it's the first two letters of both names, so it's pretty easy
just picked a Helen and a HeLa. And then they were like, yes, that person is exactly who it was. But that's I think if they had left it as Henrietta Lack's, it would have eventually became Henrietta Lack's. But because these doctors who were behind the whole thing were like, no, it's
bigger change.
Helen Lane.
Yeah.
It was a complete smokescreen that worked for decades. So later, when asked about the name Helen Lane, they denied any knowledge of it, saying that it was just some name confused by a journalist. They must have created it.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I don't know anything about it. We didn't have anything to do with it. Colleagues of Guy's later, however, would say that the name was specifically created to throw future journalists off the scent.
Yeah. Because that's the thing, is he's done this thing that was not illegal, but kind of shady, kind of not, in its the best interest, and he must know that a little bit. He must know that if he's hiding.
Like, I don't know, it's so weird to really figure out why he decided to do this, because back then it wasn't really even like, it was an ethical norm just to take whatever biological matter you wanted to from the, it was a little shady that they did it sort of without consent, but that was kind of standard practice. So I
just feel like you don't hide things you're not a little bit ashamed of.
I don't really get it. There must be, even if he was doing it kind of subconsciously, I feel like he felt bad about it, because later, basically on his deathbed, he was like, enough time has passed. you can release the name if you want.
Oh, okay.
It's really weird.
So he's thinking about it.
Yeah, she's
living rent free in his mind, as they say.
Yeah, and rent free, and basically.
She's not getting paid rent. She's everywhere.
She's everywhere. Whether or not it was a plan or an accident or like what the motives were behind it, it worked. So for the next 10 years, the woman behind the HeLa cells would be known most often as Helen Lane, sometimes as Helen Larson, but never as Henrietta Lack. So explaining part of why at least it took so long for the family to find out. Okay, so meanwhile, as HeLa continued to aggressively spread across the entire scientific community, one well-known cancer researcher and virologist named Chester Southam had a very disturbing thought. What if HeLa could affect the scientists working on them, and could they get cancer from working with Henrietta's cells?
Okay, just because they're cancerous cells?
Yeah, just because they're cancerous cells. And like back then, the understanding of cancer was still... it was more than rudimentary, but they had so many varying theories on what caused cancer and where it came from. One prevailing theory was that it was caused by some sort of contaminant or some sort of virus.
So if that's true, then
if that's true, could you get cancer from?
If you're in the lab with them every day, yeah.
Yep. So scientists had already shown that some rats grew tumors after being injected with HeLa cells. So why not humans?
But also stop injecting things with things. That's not that's not going to lead to happiness.
No. Well, this is not going to lead to happiness either because Chester Southam is a bit of a bad man. The cells had become so common and so ubiquitous in the lab that scientists began treating them kind of really casually. So they were not using very proper protective equipment techniques or any of that stuff. No vent hoods. Some scientists were just eating their lunch at the same table that they're working with HeLa. Whatever, it's fine.
Well,
I
also
use this
there's
stuff all the time.
no reason to preserve it. They got pounds.
Yeah, they got a whole bunch of it. So whatever, we'll make some more. It's fine. So one, gross, but two, not great lab practice.
No.
Some vaccines were being tested with HeLa, leaving trace amounts of the cancerous cells in the solution before injecting them into patients. So that was, not great. And if you could actually catch cancer from HeLa, it would be a huge issue.
Right.
At this point, it's in a lot of different places.
They would basically cause a pandemic.
Yeah. So all of this, I agree with. I think it's good that you figure out whether or not this thing that you're just kind of willy-nilly injecting into people is going to cause cancer. But this is where Southam takes a turn into the wildly unethical and dangerous area.
Okay.
So February of 1954, Southam loaded a syringe with saline mixed with about 5 million HeLa cells.
Feels like a lot.
And then injected that solution into the arm of a patient recently admitted to the hospital with leukemia.
Was his thought process that this person was probably terminal?
Yeah, I believe so.
Not that I'm just curious.
I believe so because they're the next I don't know exactly how many. I think I wrote it down, but there's a half a dozen or a dozen patients that are basically terminal with various types of cancer who he injects with HeLa cells.
Gotcha.
So he puts a tiny little tattoo next to the injection site so that when he comes back to inspect the area days and weeks and months later, he knows exactly where it is. So he told. He repeated this process with about a dozen other patients with one form of cancer or another. So he told them all he was running a test on their immune system, telling them that, telling them nothing of the live cancer cells that he had just injected them with.
Yeah, this is
just testing for immunities. It's totally fine.
No.
Let's see if you're immune to cancer.
But also, if they're terminal, what is he gonna learn unless the spot turns purple?
Yeah.
At that time, I feel like now you could do all sorts of crazy.
He did learn some things, but again, it's all not good science the way he did it. So it's
probably didn't
not
write
that
papers
useful
about it either.
No, I bet he did write papers. This guy feels like he was very proud of the work he did because later when brought up on a huge board of ethical review, he was like, "I still think it was good and valid that I did this because." It gets worse, but let's talk about this
it's
first.
So interesting that all the people in this story are from the Appalachian Mountains, but
I've run out of accents.
You just started with the one.
That's all I got, baby. So within hours, patients' forearms grew red and swollen. 5 to 10 days later, hard bumps began growing near the injection so maybe
site. Don't put 5 million cancer cells.
So Southam removed some of these lumps to test them to see if they were cancerous. He left others to see if the body's immune system would reject them on their own.
So basically, he was like, "You guys are not human beings to me. I'm gonna do whatever I want." The crazy thing to me is, it's always like in the name of science and helping somebody else, presumably. But it's like, you're like, done.
You're just fodder now.
You're fodder for the cannons.
You're a resource for me to use.
It feels, and like, I know that to be a good scientist, you probably need to have a little bit of ego, and you need to play God a little bit. But like, this feels too
little
far.
bit of like separation from what you're doing,
reality and humanity.
But the Hippocratic Oath, at least, it feels like we're doing harm.
We're doing harm here.
We're doing harm. So within 2 weeks, some of the lumps grew to be as large as 2 centimeters in diameter, which was the size of like Henrietta's cancer when she first got her radium treatment.
No.
So eventually he removed almost all of the nodules. Those he didn't remove mostly disappeared on their own. However, 4 patients, they came back even after being removed.
Oh, wow.
Southam removed them again and again, but they continued to come back. In one patient, Henrietta's cancer cells metastasized to her lymph nodes.
Wow. Yeah. So he is just fully causing more cancer.
However, completely unbothered.
Of course he is. You don't do that with trepidation and then be like, oh no. Like, it's like he was like, they're dead anyway.
Interesting results.
Yeah.
So he wanted to know what would happen now. He was like, oh, maybe the cancer is the problem. So let's inject it into people that don't have cancer.
Okay, no.
Yeah. So in May of 1956, he placed an ad in the Ohio State Penitentiary newsletter seeking 25 volunteers for cancer research. Before he knew it, Southam had over 150 volunteers. He would accept 65 of them.
Why did they get something?
I don't know, but it seems like they probably got some favors within the prison.
Sure, yard time.
And a lot of them, when interviewed later, would kind of all have the same refrain of being like, "I've done wrong, and I want to make as much good as I can
help somebody."
With this." So scientific testing on inmates would come under some really deep scrutiny about 15 years later, when the courts decided that incarcerated communities were a vulnerable population, unable to truly give informed consent.
I mean, I think that's true.
You know, they are trapped in a place that they can't get out of.
He's not telling them all the facts anyway. So even if he did,
huge place of power.
Yes.
And like the inequities and all of that make it very unethical.
The power dynamics are insane.
Yeah. But at the time, inmates were being used for medical research all over the country, from testing chemical warfare agents to testing whether X-rays on testicles could reduce men's fertility. Just you stand there. We're gonna shoot some X-rays at your junk, and then we'll see what happens.
Wow. I mean, I don't know if you remember this from the Johnson & Johnson story, but their baby shampoo was tested on inmates, and they poured it directly into their eyes.
Oh, great.
For like 10 minutes. They waterboarded their eyes with shampoo to make sure that it didn't hurt their eyes.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert, some of them did hurt their eyes.
Yeah. Yeah, sure. So Southam, he did actually tell them that it was cancer. Like, they knew that it was cancer in their arms, unlike, with the other 600 people that we're about to talk about.
Oh no, 600?
Yeah.
Oh,
Southam began injecting the inmates in June. Tumors began growing on the inmates, just like the previous study. The men in the study were very, very worried when they saw small lumps begin to form, knowing that they were cancerous. But again, they all were hoping, I want to do some good in the world. I've done bad. So, Southam actually gave these men multiple cancer injections, and unlike the terminally ill test subjects from the last studies, the inmates almost all fought off the cancer. And in fact, they were actually able to fight off the cells faster and faster with each new injection.
Wow.
So raising the question of whether or not you could build immunity for cancer or possibly one day create a cancer vaccine. So that's interesting. Did not play out that way.
Yeah.
You can build a vaccine for HeLa if you if you want.
The cells that you're intentionally injecting into somebody.
Yeah, but it's a whole different ballgame for all of the other types of cancer. So in the next few years, Southam would inject over 600 people with live cancer cells, some from Henrietta and some from other cultured cancers. He began injecting the cells into any gynecological surgery patient that went to Sloan Kettering.
What?
So he said he was doing it as a test for cancer, believing that since healthy bodies reject HeLa cells at much faster rates than somebody who already has cancer, he could use the technique as an early warning sign and possibly catch cancer.
But
in its
okay,
earliest stage.
600 women who went for any gynecological.
It wasn't just. So he injected a lot of different people. Some of that 600 were from people that went in for more routine gynecological surgeries.
As a person who's been put under for a gynecological procedure, I really hope that they didn't do anything else.
Yeah. They didn't at least do this because he got caught. And
I get that, but don't know what else happened.
Yeah.
That'll wake me up in a month.
So after the prison study, Southam never disclosed that he was injecting his patients with cancer cells, believing they were harmless because unless you had some different type of cancer, the cells were always rejected pretty quickly. And he thought the patients had too much fear and phobia around his work. And he didn't want to cause any unnecessary fear.
You don't want cancer in your body. Is lame.
He even suggested that telling them could be dangerous for their health. So it's better just to lie.
These people are really concerned with mental health, except for mental health.
Yeah,
they're really concerned.
And they're really not concerned for our mental health hearing about this because it is making me sad.
I don't think they knew the phrase mental health.
No, they did not. They did like to use it as a thing to their benefit. Yeah. So Southam acted as if he was withholding the information for the patient's benefit, but in reality, it was clearly just for his. Because if he told them, they would probably refuse to do the study. Of course they would. So he probably would have just continued doing this for years if it wasn't for three whistleblowers from the Jewish Chronic Disease Hospital in Brooklyn.
Okay.
So Southam contracted with the hospital to allow him to use their hospital patients for research on a much bigger scale. The head of the hospital agreed and told his staff to make the injections without, telling the patients what they were actually for. 3 of the staff doctors refused, saying that they would not conduct research on patients without their consent.
Good job.
Yep.
Good job, Brooklyn.
They believed the study breached the Nuremberg Code of Ethics and refused to do it. So in 1947, following World War II, a huge war tribunal was formed in Nuremberg, Germany, where they sentenced 7 German doctors to death by hanging. They had all conducted heinous experiments on Jewish prisoners, all without their consent, sewing some siblings together to create a kind of man-made Siamese twin, doing dissections on live humans to examine organ function. It's just a couple of the nice things that they did, along with quite a few others that we won't really get into.
Yeah, that is something that it is very graphic and very horrible. I've read into it, and it is not for the faint of heart. But
and they were all on meth, the whole time, just a lot of drugs.
And the people who did less stuff than that, Operation Paperclip, some of them came here.
Yeah.
Which is not great.
Not great.
I did not think about when you said that this story had some Nuremberg reference or something. Mm-hmm. I didn't really realize that it's 10 years later.
Yeah,
it's not that
it's not that really
far away. Not that far away from this.
And a lot of people in America, some didn't know about it.
Right.
Some were like, oh, that's not about us because that's about monsters and Nazis. It doesn't we're not
they're
them.
Doing that to prisoners.
We're
doing it to other
the Nazis,
prisoners.
So it's totally different.
I mean, America still has a chip on its shoulder about doing that.
Yeah, for sure. Even though they had a lot of the same values before the war happened, so not great. So the Nuremberg Tribunal set forth a 10-point code of ethics, now known as the Nuremberg Code. The first of which stated that the voluntary consent of the human subject is absolutely essential.
That feels great.
Yeah. The Nuremberg Code was a revolution in medicine, raising the bar for all medical research and experimentation. However, the code was not a law. It's basically just a list of recommendations, and many doctors knew nothing about it.
We have learned so many times you can't assume people are going to follow a code, a respect, an unwritten rule.
Yeah, a norm, any of that stuff,
People are going to do what they want.
They did not.
They need the threat of jail or shame or both.
Southam claimed to know nothing about the Nuremberg Code.
Of course he did.
And the 3 Jewish doctors at the
World
Brooklyn
War
Hospital
II? There was a second one? How do you not know about Nuremberg?
Wait, greater than the Great War?
Yeah, basically.
Yeah. It was worse than, it was not great at all. So the three
slow down.
The three Jewish doctors at the Brooklyn hospital were incredibly familiar with the code, however. So after they refused, their supervisor basically just had a resident do the same thing.
He's like, oh, you guys don't want to do it? I'll just get literally anybody else.
Those three doctors resigned, sending a letter of resignation to the head of the hospital as well as like a bunch of newspapers.
Wow.
So
I mean, that's
it got
great.
out really quick. And then after that, the whole thing got brought forward to get on another sort of tribunal situation. And be like,
I mean,
hey,
I kind of love that. That's like collective bargaining at its finest. Like,
yeah, it and needed to happen because again, he had like already done 600 of these injections and would have just continued to do more for a very long time. So
getting involved with a bigger hospital in a bigger city to continue to do it.
Yeah, but at the time there was no formal review board or like overseeing human testing at all. Like there was nothing. You could just kind of do whatever you wanted as long as you didn't
because
nobody
we
stopped you.
assumed that doctors always have people's best interests in mind.
Yeah. Yeah. So many states had by that point attempted to get laws passed, but were all quickly struck down because sciences and researchers said that enforcing those laws would completely halt medical progress.
Can't slow down progress to be kind to people and not inject them with cancer.
And like the thing is, so there were so many other countries that at that point did actually have consent laws, and they were still doing medical experiments at the same level. And it's like there's so many people that like if you tell them would be like, you know what? Yeah, I'll do that.
Honestly,
not all people, but still enough to get your research done.
Enough.
So the idea of informed consent did not reach legal documents until 1957, after a man receiving what he believed to be a routine procedure woke up from anesthesia permanently paralyzed from the waist down.
Yeah, that's not great.
Yeah.
That's not what you want.
The doctor had not told him that the procedure had any risk whatsoever.
Well, they didn't want to worry him.
Exactly. And what if he gets paralyzed because he's worried, paralyzed with fear, instead of paralyzed with a scalpel? So the judge ruled in the favor of the patient, saying that it was a doctor's duty to fully educate patients on their options and allow them to make truly informed decisions before agreeing to the procedure. So this was law that at that point became kind of established to protect patients from their direct doctors. However, it would be even more decades before the law began to apply informed consent to research subjects. So people that like volunteer for like generic research subjects, they were like, well, I guess you're good to go. Yeah, exactly. So after the doctors sent out their letter to, the journalists, a heated debate erupted around the ethics of Southam's study. One reporter demanded that it was so safe, why didn't the doctor inject himself with the cells? And Southam responded by saying, let's face it, there are relatively few skilled cancer researchers, and it seemed stupid to take even that little risk.
Wow. I can't possibly die because I'm very important.
That's right.
But you guys...
And he's not redeemable because he's not from Appalachia.
No, he's not.
So patients who had recently worked with Southam realized that they had received the injection, began contacting reporters as well. Journalists began demanding that Southam and the head of the hospital have their licenses revoked. Eventually, the Board of Regents found them both guilty of fraud and deceit and unprofessional conduct in the practice of medicine. They then suspended their license temporarily for 1 year.
Oh, no, not temporarily for 1 year. What will they do? Houses cost $10.
They couldn't possibly just go fishing for a year. Yeah. So after that ruling, which kind of feels like a slap on the wrist, scientists cried that medical research was doomed, saying that 1966 would mark the day that all medical progress ceased. After that, the news...
And it has.
It has. So after the news came out about Southam's studies, journalists began looking into other ongoing studies, finding that Southam's one was just one of hundreds of similarly dubious content.
Not unique, yeah.
Hundreds of other people like injecting people with various diseases and like
without
we haven't even gotten to like in 1966 the whistleblowers haven't happened for the syphilis study, but it was until the syphilis study that they didn't have the board of oversight to deal with that until after the syphilis study in like 1971. So even another like 5 or 6 years until we get any type of that kind of reform.
Yeah.
Despite the worries over, this being a complete end to medical science, the next decade was just kind of a a huge boon for medical research, even with the use of informed consent. So this is a kind of wild little section. So HeLa research continued chugging along throughout all of this, all of the good press and the bad press. By 1960, HeLa had been to space aboard the second ever near-Earth satellite, Sputnik 2, and then soon after by the American Discoverer 18.
Was that just to be like, what do cells do in space?
Kinda, yeah. They wanted to know, one, like what happens if you put cells in vacuum? Nothing good. And two, like they already knew because they'd sent animals to space that like your body, like there are effects. Your corneas, like your eyeballs change. Your bone density goes down, your blood cells sometimes are affected, and they also knew that there was a lot of radiation in space. So they basically wanted to like put some cells in space outside of the the protected inner part and see what happened. Yeah, they decided to use HeLa to find out. The thing that was crazy is that all other normal cells reacted exactly the same, grew normally, did their normal thing, whatever, everything fine. But HeLa grew even more powerful, doubling even faster and faster. And I think they sent the same sample up a couple of times, and the rate of growth continued to like rise.
Yeah.
Probably because all of the aggressive radiation in space.
Right.
So... Okay, around this time, a Navy doctor was developing a technique of culturing skin cells, hoping to help heal bad, like, burn wounds and create a quicker way of treating injured soldiers in the field. So he applied cultured skin cells directly to a few patients' wounds and then came back to test the results.
Are they HeLa cells? No, they're skin cells, so they can't be.
They're skin cells.
So they can't be.
They can't be. We'll talk about that later. So the cells did grow and begin healing the burns. However, when the doctor biopsied them a few weeks later, all of them came back cancerous. Yeah. So he panicked and removed all of the new skin cells from the patients, and then he never tried translating skin cells ever again. He was like, nope, no.
That couldn't be me.
It wasn't me, because this guy is actually reasonably ethical, at least.
Yeah.
I mean, not great to just put cells on top of other cells.
Other than
without
the fact
knowing
that
what
he was like,
would
just
do.
did the Homer Simpson in the bushes. Like, couldn't be me.
So another a peculiar thing that scientists notice about cells in culture, like all cells in culture, is we talked a little about how normal cells have like a limited shelf life. Like they can replicate quite a few times, but eventually they all die. The other thing that happens is either the normal cells die or they spontaneously transform into cancerous cells, is what they were noticing. So either they would die or they would transform. But one crazy thing that they noticed is that all of the transformed cells, after they transform into cancerous cells, behaved exactly the same. They would divide at the exact identical rates. They would also produce the same enzymes and proteins. Even though they had produced different enzymes and compounds before becoming malignant, all exactly the same. This was a big mystery for a very long time as to why this happened, which is another, like, more, at the time it was evidence that, like, maybe one virus was causing all cancer to kind of, like, convert things into this one type of problem, I guess.
Yeah.
A renowned cell culturalist named Luis Coriel thought he might have an answer to the mystery of this identical behavior. He suggested that the reason that they all reacted the same is because they were affected by the same contaminant. As like an aside, he noted that HeLa also behaved the exact same way as all of these transformed cells, and he wondered, kind of as an afterthought, if HeLa could be the contaminant. Maybe.
Maybe.
Don't
put other people's cells in your cells.
So before digging too deeply into that question, however, Coriel called a meeting with other leaders in the tissue culture field. He was worried that they were on the precipice of disaster. If they didn't do something about this like mysterious contaminant soon, the entire branch of science could be at risk. So,
well, they already stopped scientific progress, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah, it shouldn't matter. They should be able to fix this and then maybe get it jump-started again by getting rid of informed consent.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Seems logical.
Smart.
Easy peasy. So if Coriel was correct, every cell line being used could be at risk of transforming into the same malignant matter. After all the work that the guys and other early cell culturists had done to simplify and standardize the practice of tissue culturing, now almost anyone could do rudimentary culture, like in your backyard with the right materials. So hundreds of new industrial tissue cultures had been created and now were being used to do cutting-edge research on transfer and gene therapy, transplant therapy, and just a lot more stuff. So with this new ease came a certain level of cavalierness by many of the scientists. Records on which culture they were using was incredibly spotty. They were like, I don't know, one of those over there. Very little was done to prevent contamination or cross-culture mixing. Many cultures were mislabeled if they were labeled at all. Many scientists thought that if they were still growing, everything was okay. It was like, it's alive, it's a culture, it's fine. It's going to be gone. It's just going to be totally fine. If there was, however, a single contaminant causing all of this transformation and all of this like problems, then it would really disrupt or completely invalidate much of the progress made over the past couple of decades. Because if it could make some of the cell cultures that were being used, the cancerous cell cultures that were being used today, totally the science that they were being done on it invalid, because they thought it was, they were doing tests on like liver tissue, but it had transformed into this other thing that does one very specific thing. So, it would just make the science bad science and useless.
Right.
So a group of culturalists at this meeting hoping to keep their field from devolving into chaos, advised the American science community to use protective measures to limit the possible contaminants. So they suggested using suction hoods that would pull air away from any possible airborne contaminants or anything away
Basically
from the cultures.
A spray booth.
Yeah, but just like a zero air, suck all this stuff away. While the experiments were being done. They also recommended that the NIH create a reference collection of cells that scientists could compare their cultures to see if any significant drift had occurred. So see if their cultures had changed in any way over the years as they're growing them. So a bank of cataloged cultures that would be stored with the highest security and using state-of-the-art sterile techniques. The NIH agreed and formed the Cell Culture Collection Committee, the CCCC.
Catchy.
So
I'm in.
Louis Coriel and two other culturalists from this worried group of scientists were asked to head up the effort. The NIH had already had a library of bacteria and fungi, yeasts, and viruses since 1925, but this would be the first collection of cultured tissues.
I just read this book that is a novel, so I don't know if I'm allowed to reference that, but there's this family, I think they're in New Zealand or Australia, and they preserve one of the world's seed vaults.
Yep.
Because it must be New Zealand, because it's a place where it's if climate change happens, it probably won't happen that badly. But it's a really beautiful book that's only a little bit about the seeds, but the son, there's a family, and the boy he cares about the seeds so much that he puts himself in danger because he just likes the idea. He's okay.
Yeah, okay.
Spoiler alert. I think it's called Wild Dark Shore.
A big wolf-eating seed or a seed-eating wolf that's coming along, and he's like, no, stop.
No, but something else happens, and I actually have almost told you to read this book 4 times, but there is a sad dad widow, and I just don't know if he's really sad.
Okay. when I'm feeling just in a sad funk, and I want to just really get in
sad.
there.
Yeah.
Let me hit that book up.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's very, very similar to what they were creating, but this with they were trying to create this impenetrable vault of pure cell cultures, creating very strict rules and procedures for vetting and then testing different culture lines, and then transporting them to the vault. So they all needed to be tested for any possible contamination. They needed to come directly from the original source, and they also had locked, sterile, airproof briefcases that they would specifically carry them in. Probably handcuffed to somebody's wrist.
They didn't want to choose the Barbasol can from Jurassic Park.
That would have been smart. Yeah, no.
Just saying.
Didn't have that technology at the time, but I bet they would have loved it. So the first cell line collected was the L cell, which is the original cell line from the immortal mouse that was made before George Guy and HeLa. The second cell number 2 was HeLa. So Guy had to scramble because in his excitement to give away all of his HeLa cells, he gave away all of the original samples.
No.
So luckily, he found at least one original sample with the scientists who had set up the first factory at Tuskegee for the polio vaccine.
Okay.
All right. So in 1960, French scientists discovered that when cells in culture were exposed to a specific virus, they would clump together and sometimes fuse. And when they fused, they would actually blend their genetic material together.
Oh.
Technical name for this was somatic cell fusion, but some cheeky scientists like to call it cell sex.
Hilarious.
I know. So cell sex allowed scientists to study how genetic traits were passed along much faster than the old-fashioned way, because for some reason, once they made this thing happen, it would kind of produce new cells every day. You would get new cells coming out of it. And they would have parts of the original two cells that it had been mixed from until, I don't know, eventually it stops. But either way, in 1965, two British scientists took cell sex one step further by fusing HeLa cells with mouse cells, creating the first human-mouse hybrid.
What's our ratio there?
Which is
90% human, 10% mouse.
It was 50-50, but it was just a cell. So we haven't. They're not creating creatures. They're just creating a single cell.
This is less fun.
Yeah, I know. But the news media got really jumped. They're really worried about mouse men.
The same people that were like, you can't. If men can marry men, they're gonna marry a dog. It's like nobody's marrying a dog.
Same. Still kind of still kind of spooky, but it was half mouse, half Henrietta DNA. So all of this hybrid cell stuff really helped scientists discover what individual genes actually did, and the mouse hybrid was crucial in this process.
Was it adorable, do you think?
I think it probably looked squishy.
Squishy things can be adorable.
I don't know.
Have you seen a jelly cat?
That's true. That's true. It may. Let's say it was adorable. I think that'd be nice.
There's no harm in that.
So the thing about the mouse-human hybrid is that over time, the mouse cells became dominant, and the human cells would eventually just disappear one by one, and then it would kind of revert back to a natural mouse cell. This happened slow enough, however, that scientists could actually see the change in behavior, see the genes change, and the cell would produce different enzymes, allowing them to know which chromosome affected which enzyme. So one chromosome would disappear, and then all of a sudden, whatever this one enzyme would also stop, and they were like, the 23rd one down makes makes this enzyme stop.
I'm able to chart this now,
and this provided the very first rudimentary human genome map that we use today, which I think is kind of cool. They went on to use this study of hybrids to create various gene therapies, studied the cause of organ rejection and transplants, making it a lot easier to do life-saving surgeries, because they were like, if we can force a mouse cell and a human cell to hang out together, we ought to be able to figure out how to talk your body into enjoying having a new kidney. That's probably how it works out, right? Be like, hey, come on,
Are you enjoying that?
Are you enjoying that?
How's that feel?
How's that feel? Is that good for you? Good, proud. So scientists were absolutely stoked about gene hybrid studies, but the public became very wary very fast.
I mean, it sounds insane.
Yeah, no, they called all of the hybrid scientists mad scientists. They were like, oh, they're crazy. They're creating man-animal monsters.
I mean, literally, when you said man-mouse hybrid, I was picturing Petri dish.
Sure.
Lots of goo.
Yeah.
Human ear, mouse tail. Just popping out.
Got it. Yeah.
All covered in light fur.
All kind of just gooey and furry.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I'm
Squishier
really
than
good
that.
at science.
So they called it an assault on life. Scientists tried to assure the public that they were only creating individual cells, not fully fledged horror creatures. But the public never really believed them.
I mean, they were right on the heels of that immortal chicken.
Yeah, true.
Stop creating man-sized chickens.
Exactly. Gotta stop creating man-sized chickens.
I've never done it.
There was one of Henrietta's cousins, I don't know why, but she popped down into the basement of John Hopkins and then told Henrietta that she had seen man-sized chickens. And was very scared of them. I'm not really sure why. I'm not quite sure what she found, but maybe they were man-sized chickens down there.
First of all, could be.
Could be.
Second of all, what a weird segue for the book to take.
Yeah.
For you to take.
Well, I'll the next episode we're gonna probably get into a lot more of the the family. And
how many were you thinking? Like
45.
6? Great.
Give or take. Yeah,
cool.
give or take. Yeah.
Great.
It's just a very fascinating story.
No, it's fascinating. I mean, I don't have to do work. It's great.
So the public never really believed these scientists. They were like, "There's definitely monsters somewhere deep in the lab's basement."
Yeah, no, I mean they're
sure.
with.
And I still think
Area
there were probably monsters down there.
Whatever,
yeah. So okay, remember how I you asked whether or not the skin cells were HeLa cells?
Yes.
We're about to get into that topic. So in September of 1966, a man named Stanley Gartner he's a geneticist who spoke at a conference, of like cell culturalists and genetics. And it was all like kind of a celebration. They do it every year and they're like, where is our field going next?
Gotcha.
And this guy was like, I think I found a technical problem, just a little issue that might be a little bit of a problem. So Gartner had been working on cataloging genetic markers and had noticed something kind of strange happening in many of the most commonly used tissue cultures of the day. 18 of these most commonly used tissues had a very, very rare genetic marker, G6PDA. This genetic marker was almost exclusively found in Black American DNA. And even among that population, it was kind of rare.
Wow, okay.
So this was strange because many of the cell cultures came from Black Americans, but many others came from Caucasians. It seemed as if somehow the tissue cultures were being genetically contaminated somehow. So a few weeks earlier, Gartner had contacted George Guy to ask about the race of the woman behind the HeLa line. When Guy told Gartner that the sample had come from a, quote, colored woman, he believed that he had discovered the source of the contamination.
That makes sense.
So he told the crowd that the simplest conclusion was that they had all been contaminated by exposure to HeLa. Scientists knew that they needed to keep their cultures free from bacteria and viral infection, and they knew that it was possible for cells to contaminate each other if mixed in culture. However, none of their precautions were nearly enough to protect against HeLa. Henrietta's cells apparently were so hardy and they could replicate so easily with just the smallest amount of cellular material that they could actually float along in air on dust particles and move from one culture to the next on unwashed hands, reused pipettes,
also they chose them because they were robust and hardy and reproduced quickly.
For
so
sure.
You did that to yourself.
So some of the family members later will say that like this HeLa bomb was just Henrietta getting back at them for not telling the public about her sooner and not telling her family about it. They were like, you can use her for medical science, but she's gonna get you. Yeah. She's gonna get you, which I like as a concept because I think these guys, especially the people just injecting cancerous cells into people,
cells,
not great. They deserve to get knocked down a peg or two. They were actually like riding from lab to lab on researchers' coats and on shoes.
Wow.
And they were just like, were able to survive.
This is a real magic school bus situation.
Very magic school bus. So if even just one single HeLa cell made it into a new culture, they would completely take over.
Everything.
Consuming all of the culture media and taking up all of the space, killing off or absorbing the existing tissue culture. Gartner's findings did not go over well.
Oh, people weren't excited about the contamination?
People were not excited about the contamination.
That's so weird.
So for years, scientists had been creating more and more immortal cell lines, using them to do science in specific cells, trying to learn as much as possible as they could about each type of tissue and each type of cancer. So if so many of these cultures had been contaminated, and at least somewhat replaced with Henrietta's cervical cancer, then all of the research the scientists had been doing for decades was possibly useless.
Right.
So millions of dollars in wasted research and also so much wasted time. So Gartner's theories also raised questions about specific experiments that used, types of body parts to try to learn new things about like hearts or kidneys or heart cancer or kidney
dubious.
cancer, saying that they reacted differently than like HeLa did, because it's very likely that they were using HeLa. So either like somehow they got magically different results, or they lied about the results.
They probably lied.
Yeah, they might have lied.
It feels like lies, maybe.
Of the 18 different cell lines that he found the rare genetic marker in, He also talked about where he tested them from, and 6 of them came from that like NIH vault of super secret protected baseline culture strains, meaning that HeLa had infiltrated the Fort Knox of cellular tissue cultures.
I like that.
Not she's in there messing some stuff up.
Sticky as hell.
So even that effort may have been compromised, costing the scientific world millions of more dollars.
Oh boy. Yeah. She's stirring it up.
So after the cell culture community began developing the library, they started using much more rigorous techniques to prevent contamination. The rate at which they created successful cell lines diminished by a lot. So not only that, they had also not reported a single example of the spontaneous transformation of normal human cells becoming spontaneously cancerous. So this was a huge blow. Not only could it mean that they had wasted a lot of money and a lot of time on bad research, the concept of spontaneous transformation had been one of the most promising avenues to the study to help figure out how to cure cancer.
Yeah, you said the thing before and you looked at me with this very expectant face and I was like, I need more information.
Yeah, well here's the more information. So it seemed like after Gartner's findings that spontaneous transformation was not just a natural thing that happened to almost all cells. It was just them actively watching HeLa take over these different cultures. So
that's so much time.
Yeah.
Okay. Clean your hands.
Gotta clean your hands. Gotta clean your pipettes. New stuff. Use the vent hood. I don't know. So it always been kind of suspicious and strange as to why the cells had reacted exactly the same after they transformed, but less suspicious and less confusing when you're like, oh, they all became the same thing. Yeah. It was HeLa, which is a bummer. So, Gardner was just a geneticist. He didn't really have a lot of experience in the cellular culture field before he started doing this specific study. So not only did he drop just an unpleasant bomb on all of these scientists, a lot of them really thought of him as kind of like an outsider to the field. So many scientists very quickly tried to find holes in Gartler's findings, asking how long he had kept them in his laboratory, suggesting that the contamination happened in Gartler's lab, not before. He responded by saying they were all tested and analyzed at their home labs before being sent to his personal lab. They asked if the samples had been frozen, wondering if the contamination happened during the thawing process. However, Gartler did the test while the samples were still frozen, so that didn't matter either.
Didn't work, yeah.
Eventually, the chair of the conference stopped all the questioning and said that they clearly had more study to do to determine whether or not Gartler's theory was accurate or not, and we should just kind of move it along.
Yeah, he's like, we're not going to solve this today. Let's hit the bull.
Let's hit the bull, exactly. So many scientists just laughed off the man's theories, but others took it very seriously. So they quickly began testing every culture that they could get their hands on to verify the findings and see how widespread the problem was. Scientists began working on genetic tests that could specifically find HeLa and not just the single genetic cell marker. So to really verify that this is HeLa that was moving from thing to thing. Gartler's theories would turn out to be very true. HeLa was taking over cellular cultures and able to move from one culture to another as easily as hitching a ride on a speck of dust. Gartler's announcement to that conference would later come to be known as the HeLa bomb. So, okay. In late spring of 1970, George Guy was fishing with some of his friends and colleagues on the bank of the Potomac. Suddenly, he felt incredibly weak, almost collapsing. His friends pulled him back up to the bank and into the car, taking him back to John Hopkins. After years of studying cancer, it turns out it was now George Guy's turn. And he had one of the most deadly and fastest spreading cancers, pancreatic cancer.
Oof.
Yeah. So if doctors didn't operate on him immediately, he would die. And even if they did, it would probably only buy him a little time. So on August 8th, 1970, Margaret called every member of Guy's lab staff in for a mysterious emergency procedure. They didn't tell anyone what they were doing. They were just get down here and get to the basement. When the doctors showed up, they were all told of George's cancer and told that they would be taking samples just like they had with Henrietta's tumor almost 20 years ago. So George had decided that if he was going to die of cancer, he would at least try to make a difference, hoping that his GG line of cells would become an immortal cell line just like Henrietta's.
Do you think that he wanted to do that for altruism, or do you think that he wanted to do out of weird remorse, or do you think that he wanted to do it to be immortal?
I think
science?
A and C. Like, I think it was both. He wanted to like do one more thing for science, and then out of some
He
altruism,
wouldn't mind if everybody kind of knew about it.
Two,
and
like I think he would
praised
be
him.
if he was like, oh, if my cells become even cooler than
Right.
Henrietta's cells, then that'll be cool. But yeah. So unfortunately, after doctors got in there, opened him up, and started examining him, they discovered that they were far too late. Growths had covered his stomach, his spleen, his liver, and his intestines. They worried that cutting into the tumors would kill him. So against his wishes, they closed him back up without taking any samples.
Weird, because A, they respected his wishes, and B, they would have cut into anybody else.
Yeah, exactly. They did not give Henrietta the same concern.
Yeah.
When George Guy woke up from anesthesia, he was absolutely pissed, though. He was like,
Also,
you didn't
like,
take the
you
sample.
put me under and cut me open and didn't do what I asked you to do.
He was pretty mad. So once he recovered from that surgery,
He was like, I'll do it myself.
I'll get on in there. He contacted all of the best cancer research hospitals around the country and asked who was doing research on like cutting edge pancreatic cancer. He wanted to offer himself up as a test subject. Nothing was too experimental. He had already decided he was going to die. Now he wanted to help advance medicine one more time, even if it killed him.
Wow.
So he got a flood of replies. In the 3 months between that surgery at John Hopkins and his death, he went to like 7 different places.
Wow.
He went to the Mayo Clinic to get a week of treatment with an experimental Japanese drug, made him violently ill. And then to New York for a couple of weeks of study at Sloan Kettering, and then back to John Hopkins for a new experimental chemotherapy drug, not yet approved for humans. He did a lot of stuff. During that time, his body withered from both the disease and the aggressive treatment that the hospital was trying on him. So on November 8th, 1970, George died. Before he died, he did make a point of telling his former assistant, Mary Kubitschek, that after this many years, it would be fine. Her name's Henrietta. It would be fine if they released Henrietta's true name. But possibly out of respect for her former boss, or I don't know, not wanting to be in the limelight, Mary decided to keep out of it.
I mean, part of me would definitely be like, why do I need to do it?
Yeah, why is that me?
In charge of this.
George Guy, problematic figure in this story for sure. His last few months, though, I feel like he really, whether or not it was out of ego or real altruism, I do think he did
intend to help people.
Yeah, he really that part of it is he was really putting himself forward because he was in pain. A lot of pain.
No,
for the
that
last,
sounds miserable to be like, do whatever you want with me, considering what they're doing to people who they don't say that.
Yeah. So, a few months after George's death, Howard Jones and a few other John Hopkins scientists decided to write a history of HeLa as a tribute to George's memory. While doing the research, Jones noticed a problem with Henrietta's medical records. With years of new study, it was clear to Jones that Henrietta's original diagnosis was incorrect. So he checked the original biopsy sample to make sure, which apparently they saved for 25 years.
Sure.
Instead of epidermoid carcinoma, Jones now knew that Henrietta's cancer was an adenocarcinoma of the cervix. Instead of skin cells, the tumor had originated from a glandular cell, helping explain why her cancer spread so quickly to other parts of the body. Apparently, it's a much more aggressive cancer.
Was that a diagnosis they could have made in the same year and somebody made a mistake, or did they not know about it yet?
They did know about it, but it was pretty rare. And they did say that that at the time they treated both types of cancer the same. So even if they had gotten it correct, they probably would have done the same.
Still would have just
Brax plaque
shoved
and
some radium up there.
Probably.
And hope for the best.
Yeah. So in the article that they wrote kind of as a tribute, they listed the correct diagnosis, and they also finally identified the original subject as Henrietta Lack. This is the first time that Henrietta's true name appeared in print next to HeLa. So next to a very striking picture of the woman, there was a subtitle that said Henrietta Lack, a.k.a. HeLa.
Okay.
So after the publication, Henrietta's true name started spreading like wildfire, lab to lab. It was in like a pretty niche journal though, so the rest of the public didn't really get that knowledge just yet. But like lab to lab, they were learning about Henrietta. Later that year, Richard Nixon signed the National Cancer Act and announced a war on cancer, promising $1.5 billion in research funding over the next 3 years. Nixon announced that doctors would cure cancer in the next 5 years, just in time for the American bicentennial.
What a gift that would have been.
Yeah.
But instead, it's been another 50 years.
Yep.
And we're going to have a cage fight on the White House lawn.
We sure are.
And that, my friend, is progress. Couldn't even say it. Oh, boy.
Many believed at the time this war on cancer, was just meant to distract from the negative press coming out of Vietnam. Probably true.
Usually is.
So with this funding, the pressure to show results and find the elusive cancer virus grew exponentially. So Nixon announced a joint effort with Russian scientists to exchange information and biomedical research to find this quote-unquote cancer virus. Most people at the time still did not know or believe in Gartler's theory that the cancer virus was nothing more than HeLa contamination. But late in 1972, the Russian doctors announced that they had identified a possible sample of the cancer virus. The cells were transferred to the U.S. to verify the results, and it turns out those cells were none other than
HeLa cells.
HeLa cells, Henrietta Lack's cervical cancer. Somehow her cells had made it all the way to Russia and then back again.
Because they're sticky little buddies.
They're world travelers, sticky little buddies. So the world had finally accepted the HeLa bomb as a concept. Once the news hit that American cancer cells had affected Russian ones, the public finally started taking interest into the HeLa contamination problem. Cancer cells from long-dead women invade other cultures. Serious confusion, misguided research, and millions of wasted dollars. That's my news.
I was going to say, are you reading the byline from a Spider-Man reporter
I was,
in the
yes,
60s?
Correct. So now the public was fully focused on HeLa once again and the woman behind the immortal cells. The article continued to get her name wrong, however, calling her Helen Lane and Helen Larson, until some scientists decided they needed to set the record straight. Eventually, Howard Jones and some of his colleagues stepped forward to send letters, like definitive letters to multiple news outlets, correcting them once and for all and confirming that HeLa was from a woman named Henrietta Lack. So the news spread even farther and faster, but it still took a few months to get back to the Lack family.
Yeah, I mean, imagine if you're not reading scientific journals.
Yeah,
not
probably won't
news
really
right away. If you're just trying to make it to see tomorrow.
That's right. So early in 1973, a chance meeting between Babette Lack and a researcher at the National Cancer Institute, the news of HeLa finally got back to the family. He was like the brother-in-law of one of Babette's friends, and he was just over for a hangout, a little chit chat.
Just a weird.
And then they were
just
chatting. They were like, "Oh, hey, how are you?" And she was like, "Oh, I work at I work at the hospital." He was like, "Oh, I do cancer research." And he was like, "Where'd you grow up?" "I grew up in northern Baltimore." I was like, "Oh, me too." "What's your last name?" "Oh, Lax." And he went, "Huh, that's interesting. I've been using these cells for years. And just last week, I read this article that I thought they were from this lady named Helen Lane, but it turns out they're from a woman named Henrietta Lack." And Babette was like, "Huh, that's funny. My mother-in-law was named Henrietta Lack, but it couldn't possibly be her. She died back in the 50s.
Yeah.
And he went, "Wait a minute. Your mother-in-law is Henrietta Lack? Did she die of cervical cancer?" And Babette was like, "How did you know?"
This is... I love this acting you're doing. I love this stage play for one.
And
is Babette
12.
a man?
No, Babette is a woman. She's married to Lawrence Lack, one of Henrietta's sons.
Gotcha.
So, Babette was like, how did you know that she died of cervical cancer? And then she had completely stopped smiling. It was no longer a joke. And
also uncomfortable that you have to introduce that to the family as the in-law.
Yeah, very uncomfortable. But the researcher said that those cells in the lab had to be her mother-in-law's because they were from a woman who died of cervical cancer named Henrietta Lack in 1951.
Yeah.
I was like, it's her. And then he told her that they had hundreds of her cells in his lab. And she was like, how did you get those cells? And then he was like, what are you talking about? I ordered them online. But he didn't order that. That's not how it worked.
Yeah,
he called however you got cells back then. But he was like, I ordered them from the service that delivered them. And he was like, what service? What are you doing with her cells? Because like,
again, you made Bobette a man. But that's
did.
okay.
Yeah, I'm not great at accents.
No, you said he.
Oh yeah, I did. That's a whoopsie.
Oh well.
She shook him.
Yeah.
And so we'll get into it some more in the next episode. Again, much more about the family. But the Black community and medical research are
at odds.
Yeah, they do not trust each other. And like by this time they had just found out about the syphilis study, and Bobette was like,
right.
Oh God, it's happening to us. They like have a piece of Henrietta alive somewhere.
Yeah.
And she freaked out. I mean, there was also like, because of John Hopkins, history of like treating, poor people and like doing testing on poor people.
Oh yeah.
Like there was a lot of like theories. There was just like folklore about like night doctors coming and taking Black people off the streets and doing medical testing on them
outing them, but to do science.
And we'll get into it even more. But apparently this is like goes all the way back to like slave master, slave.
Makes sense.
Because they basically told them like not to go outside because there were doctors out there that would take you and do like weird spooky research on you, or there were ghosts out there that would come and take you for like whatever
some sort of torture.
And those like that ghost lore is actually part of where the like Ku Klux Klan hoods came, because they were pretending to be these ghosts outside of the slaves' windows to scare them, to keep them inside. So like this theory of like dark men coming to take them in the night is like very deep seated
to them.
And very, very real. And like some of it is not true. Like the syphilis study, the like all of this stuff that was happening without consent.
So many reasons to be suspicious. I also hadn't thought about this, and maybe we'll get into it next week, or maybe you don't know, or maybe they're not religious. But I was curious if there's any like religious feelings, because I feel like a lot of times with like true crime, which is not the same as science, obviously, people want their family member to be laid to rest.
Oh, sure.
And so the idea that she's like not at rest.
Yeah, they are religious, and some of her family even believes that like her being kind of reincarnated into these everlasting HeLa cells is her like going to heaven, is the like transformation into an immortal state. So, and like she went on to do all of this huge medical research and stuff like that. So there's...
Well, glad they're not tortured by it.
Yeah, I mean, I think some are, her daughter that Deborah we'll talk about a lot in the next episode, who is also like instrumental in the work for this book, as well as like figuring out, things about her mother. But she was very tortured by it and very afraid of like all of these. She would kind of go back and forth in being really excited about learning about her mother, and then being afraid that somebody was coming to take all of the last things that belonged to her mother. So like her Bible and her like her medical records were so. Yeah. Deborah had the medical records, but then like every now and then the author of this book, who they become very close friends, but every now and then there was one moment when like. Deborah had put the medical records on her like bed and brought Rebecca in to like clearly look at them, and Rebecca just saw them and went, "Oh, are those the records?" And immediately Deborah like no. Panicked and thought she was gonna try to steal them, and that she was like, they constantly have to like, she has to talk her down to be, because she keeps being like, who sent you here? Who's paying you? Yeah, like why are you trying to steal this from me? And like for good reason. I mean, it's all
that's so
like
sad.
Deborah had a very hard life, and yeah, she did like her mother did start getting a lot of big recognition before her death, but she did die a little like earlier, before any of the lawsuits or any of that happened or any of that stuff. So. Which is part of why I wanted to do an episode kind of talking more about the family. She was such an instrumental part in all of the writing of the book and stuff.
So that's next week?
That's next week, yeah. So Bobette, she freaked out. She went back to the family and was like, Lawrence, some of your mother is still alive at John Hopkins. We need to tell the whole family. And Yeah. I think that's where we're going to leave it for this episode. We'll talk much more about the family and kind of get into the research that happened after that and kind of the connection with the author to the book, in the next episode. But
okay.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
We learned a lot.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. Yeah. Is that the finale of the story, or is there more science to come?
No, so there's more stuff to come. Most of the science I think is done, because I did finish the book, but we need to kind of get into the ethical debates of like using people's cells after the fact. There's a lot of like legal wrangling that happens that later kind of culminates in the ongoing lawsuits that are happening now. And I will say I need to find some more research on the actual lawsuits, because most of them at this point have settled out of court. And I don't know how much they got. I don't know much about it because it's all kind of
under lock and key.
More secretive. But I'm going to try to find some sources and try to get some more information.
Rough people up to the real
that's right.
hard-hitting journalism.
Me.
Google it, at least.
Gumshoe.
Yeah.
You
have gum on stuff
burn
sometimes.
Some leather. On my shoe leather.
Shoe leather.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Well, I am excited to hear some more of the personal story next week.
Yep.
I'm excited about some of our new listeners. Guess, if you had to guess, what percentage of our listenership is European?
5%?
15%.
Yeah. We're international, baby.
We are international.
Yeah. We've been international for a while, but this feels pretty...
15%. It's not nothing. Yeah. If other people want to give us topics to talk about, if you have, weirdly, a source of news about Henrietta Lack's lawsuits, send it our way.
Know. Yeah.
Stranger things have happened. And also we do have a nice little chunk of new listeners. So I just want to say welcome again.
Yeah.
And if all of you could leave a review for us, it could possibly literally change our lives. So something to think about. We're very sleepy parents. What if we got 10 more hours in the week, you know? Somehow, nice. I don't know how, but money helps things. But yeah, we're so excited to make this podcast for you, and we appreciate your listenership. And if you're brand new, go back, check out
the.
There's also 2 years before we have a kid. If you're tired of hearing about,
if you're tired of hearing us being tired.
Yeah, we were.
There was a time before fatigue.
We
were still kind of sleepy. Yeah,
sleepy
I've always been kind of bad at writing these book reports.
Yeah, but lots of material. Thank you, guys. Hey.
Have a good week. We'll see you next week.
Keep it crispy. That's not ours.
We stole that.
Have a great week.
Bye.
Bye.